Welcome, everyone. It's the next meeting of the RASC Halifax Centre. Welcome to everyone. My name is Judy Black. I'm one of the directors on the board of our centre. And welcome everyone, both here in the room as well as those of you out in Zoom land. And from near and far, whether you're from our centre or from another, cheers. And all I can say is that I hope everyone is well on this gloriously rainy day. And for those of you in Nova Scotia, I'm sure you appreciate the relevance of the rain and that we're actually happy to see it. You'll notice on the main screen that the flower that is chosen there is fireweed, or for those of you in the UK, bombweed. And it is sort of significant to us in one sense, in that we're thinking of those who have been affected by the wildfires that are currently raging across our province, both those here locally as well as especially those down in the southwest region where it is enormously huge. So please know that our thoughts are with you at this time. Our president is PEI resident John Nangreaves. So I'm sure John, I think I heard his voice, so I think he's here online. If you need, that's the email to reach him. But if you have any questions or concerns about the center or about anything that we are presenting here or in the future, please go to our website at halifax.rasc.ca and you go into contact us, and you can contact any one of the members of the board or any of the relevant appointed positions as well. So please feel free to go there to contact us. And as most of you know, we have a YouTube channel in which all our previous meetings, recorded meetings, are there, and this one will be there as well in the next few days. And that's your notification that this meeting is being recorded. First thing we'd like to do is acknowledge the Indigenous lands. We are in the Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship with which the Mi'kmaq and Maliseet peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1725. The treaties did not deal with surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq and Maliseet title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between the nations. We also want to welcome everyone to our meeting. We do believe in and follow the inclusivity and diversity statement of the National RASC. All are welcomed, regardless of age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnership, pregnancy and maternity, race, ethnic origin, color, nationality, national origin, religion or belief, or sex and sexual orientation. We are opposed to all forms of unlawful and unfair discrimination. Should any of you, consequent to this meeting or at this meeting, either here in person or out there in Zoom land, receive any form of discrimination, please let us know. We have a zero tolerance for it and we will address it. Next slide, if you would, once you get it. You'll note that today's theme is to infinity and beyond. For those of you that know, I think it was A Bug's Life when the character said, or no, sorry, not A Bug's Life, it was Buzz Lightyear in Toy Story. They say to infinity and beyond. Well, that's what I thought of when I noticed or read what was going to be discussed today. We are looking at the possibility of humanity going out there into the universe and what effects it will have on us as human beings. So to infinity and beyond. This is our agenda. Following the welcome will be some special announcements. Pat Kelly could not be with us today because he's on vacation. God love him. So we just have a couple of things to note to members. Dave Hoskin, our EPO chair, will then provide the photo montage. I have a small announcement regarding awards, National RASC Awards. Then we have our guest speaker, Laura Mclarnon, who will address space medicine, a history and a look ahead. And having heard Laura give this presentation in an earlier rendition, I know you will enjoy not only the presentation, but also her. We will have a 15-minute break after she has concluded, and then we'll have John Reed come up and tell us a little bit about his project called Stargaze Nova Scotia, which is a new stargazing site within the HRM. And then Chris Young will be coming up to do the Nova East to let us know what's going on there. And then we have Paul Heath with his next poem, Food for the Soul, entitled Second Star to the Right, and I'll let Paul describe what that's about when he comes up. And then we have Dave Hoskin coming up again, and this time to address the What's Up in the June Sky. So without further ado, Dave, if you could do the photo montage, that'd be wonderful.
Okay, so everyone can hear me? Yes? Okay, so these are images taken throughout May by RASC Halifax members. I lifted them off the discussion list and the Facebook page. So I've probably missed some members' efforts, but these are the ones I have. So the first one is from Judy Black. He took this image of the Pinwheel Galaxy and lots of other stuff in the image, but the main point of interest is the recently discovered supernova, 2023 IXF, which is quite prominent, and you'll see a few other images the members took of this particular celestial happening. Michael Boschad has been busy taking pictures out of his apartment window. This is a nice shot of sunspots on May 7th. The sun's been quite active. And a close-up of sunspots on May 23rd. Particularly the one on the right, you can clearly see the umbra and the penumbra, and lots of nice granulation. I believe he took this with his dedicated astrocam and the new reflector that he has. And crescent moon from May 22nd. See the gang of four, quite prominent, and Mercury just above. And another shot of focusing on Copernicus. Again, he took this with his new reflector and I believe a DSLR. And a nice shot of Castor and Pollux in Gemini, and Venus at the bottom, and the crescent moon with lots of earthshine visible. And lastly, a sunset on May 19th. Lovely colors. Nice shadowing effect of the building. Dave Chapman posted this from a picture taken by BGO, the observatory here at St. Mary's. Again, the arrow showing the new supernova in M101. Jason Dane took this image of the Milky Way arch. May in particular and the first part of June are good months to capture the entire arch of the Milky Way in a panoramic shot. I took these pictures in the end of May of one on the left's white light and one on the right's hydrogen alpha, the sun, lots of sunspot activity. The white light image I took with the dwarf smart telescope, and it's doing a pretty good job at given, was it 26 millimeters of aperture? Not too bad. And this image of the waxing gibbous moon was also from the dwarf. Pretty easy to set up. You just take it out, plop it down. Yeah, I'm going to write a review on it for the next issue of Nova Notes, but it's basically a really lightweight robotic telescope, and you control it through an app on your phone or tablet, and you just plunk it down, point it up to the sky, tell it to calibrate. It plate solves from 3 images of the sky, knows where it is, and then it just goes to places. The focus is still a little finicky, but it seems to be getting better with every iteration. Oh, 1/400th second exposure. But I took video, so 30 minutes of video. The question asked was a picture of the moon. I think I took 30 minutes of video and then converted that MP4 file to a SAR file, and stack the best 10%. And the Ghost Bush Cluster, one of the few deep sky objects that I took last month. Fabian Pittman also focused on the sun. This is another filtered image showing lots and lots of sunspots. So the one on the left was huge, many times the size of the Earth. Blair McDonald posted this image of the Leo triplet. And Kathy Walker has been continuing her efforts with some planetary nebula. This is Abel 61, NGC 5248, and constellation Botes. A spiral galaxy. An open star cluster, NGC 5709 in Aquila. And a globular cluster, NGC 6760, also in Aquila. And Messier 14. Kathy's been busy this past month. And not to be outdone, Kathy also focused on that Messier 101, the pinwheel with the supernova. It looks like she caught some satellites zipping across the image as well. And that's all for this month.
Okay, perhaps while Dave is clearing up some stuff, I'm assuming I'm on. You can hear me? Okay. Could I have Chris Young and Dave Chapman come down to the front to help with this, please? The next segment of our program is to make our members aware of the National RASC Awards. There are several out there. Those of you that were in attendance last month, come on in, Chris, saw me gobsmacked with the receipt of the President's Award, but there is an award called the Service Award. And the recipients of, I'm going to read this because it's off the website. The recipients of the Service Award will receive an email, just so the recipients know that they will receive an email following this meeting, and their medal will arrive later in the late summer. The Service Award is a major award of the Society given to a member in recognition of outstanding service rendered over an extended period of time, where such service has had a major impact on the work of a society and or a center of the society. To be eligible for the award, the recipient must, 1, be a member in good standing, have rendered substantial service of a well-defined nature to the society and or a center over a period of at least 10 years. Such service should have had a major constructive impact and would involve a very substantial and continued commitment on the part of the nominee. And they can't have received a service award before. So the recipient of the service award that was nominated from our center, I'm not going to relay the person's name just yet, but please know that he was nominated by our board and by Dave Chapman as a member at large. This person has been a member since 2004, and I'm sure this person is going to recognize themselves. They've had 19 years of continuous RASC membership. They were an editor of Nova Notes for 9 years. They were also the chair of our center's Committee for International Year of Astronomy in 2009. He was one of the principal volunteers, along with Dave Chapman here, who initiated the designation of Kejimkujik National Park and National Historic Site to become a RASC Sky Preserve in 2010. He also represented RASC with Parks Canada for 12 years, including biennial lighting audits and initial consultations on a partnering agreement. He was registrar of the Nova East Star Party for 4 years. That's where I first met this dear soul. And chaired and co-chaired the Nova East Planning Committee for 2 years. He's a volunteer extraordinary at numerous outreach events. And to quote the nomination, this person, and I've substituted the person's name, is a passionate amateur astronomer whose hard work has contributed much to the success of the RASC Halifax Centre. As a small tech business owner, he has superb organizational and managerial skills, along with an engaging personality and representational matters with outside organizations such as Parks Canada, local universities, and exhibitions. RASC Halifax Centre owes him a great vote of thanks. And in case you haven't guessed, we offer our congratulations to our incomparable auctioneer, Quinn Smith, who's joining us from the UK. So Quinn, congratulations. Yay!
Thank you. Have I just been set up?
Unmute, Quinn.
I am unmuted, I hope. Can you hear me?
You can now. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I think I've been set up here. What a wonderful honor. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Congratulations.
I'll never live down the auction, will I?
No, not at all.
Anyway, good to see you, Quinn.
Good to see you.
And,
good to see everybody.
Yeah, there's all kinds of rascals here, literally. Anyway, but there was a whole number of things that we did together with the association, and we appreciate all the help. And I remember, specifically the AGM, and I've got my T-shirt on, and of course, as you know, it says "Don't panic" on the back. And you were very clever because you said this was for the guests when the guests arrived from across the country, that this would keep them calm. But in actual fact, it was for the volunteers, so they wouldn't get like panicky about the job that they had to do. Anyway, anyway, good. You were very clever about that. It took me a while to realize that.
I didn't heed the notice myself. It was you that kept me calm through that GA. So I'll always thank you for that.
Oh, well, more than welcome. And I learned some things from you from doing planetarium shows. When you get hard questions, you just say, well, you know what? I'm only 20 minutes ahead of you. So, I don't have all the information, but we'll get it. And so I was never successful in having anyone write a question on a $10 bill and pass it up to the front in the planetarium.
I was always hopeful.
Yeah, we were always hopeful. We were always hopeful. And and personally, I learned from you a better appreciation of looking at wide field views of the sky and seeing objects in context, rather than just going for power and seeing how deep we could drill in. So it was good, and I learned a little bit about single malt Scotch as well. So
and tequila.
I think so. Anyway, another amigo over here is here, Dave. No, Dave's saying, well, he's being shy, I guess. Anyway, it's all in the works. So anyway, we miss you here, and but do appreciate, and it's terrific that it's being recognized, all your contributions, because your footprints are everywhere, right? So anyway, it's great. Good for me. Anyway, take care.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay. So that was the first service award. We have a second one that our board and Dave nominated. And again, I'm sure this person in the room will recognize who they are. They've been a member since 2001, so they've had 22 years of continuous service. They've served on the Novi's Planning Committee since 2008, organizing prizes, shopping for and preparing food, setting up, taking down, and other tasks as requested. He began his outreach activities at the 2009 International Year of Astronomy with a library talk, Observing the Night Sky for Beginners. Volunteer and night sky tour guide at the Ketchum-Kuchik Dark Sky Weekend for the past 9 years. He's given a sequence of mini talks on cultural astronomy at our monthly meetings, and he served as Center Secretary for 7 years before he convinced me to take on that role. Volunteers at numerous outreach events and serves as a mentor to many, self included, and always willing to help when and where he can, and always with a sense of fun. To quote the nomination, this person is one of those stalwart members who do not seek the limelight, but is always ready to jump in to lend a hand without being asked. He has a level head and a calming manner, just as Quinn has told us a moment ago, and always helpful in problem solving and providing guidance. So in case you haven't guessed, congratulations to Chris Young for the service award. That was the hope. So, yes, he did. That was how I got him to be online.
Anyway, well, thank you, Judy. I honestly had no expectations or never entered my mind. Just like the T-shirt, I missed it, and I thought, why is Dave hanging back here when we're going to go RASC Quinn? I thought it would always be a good opportunity. But that's anyway. I like to thank you and those that nominated and supported me on that. And anyway, it's doing. Oh, sorry. That's right. Doing this stuff is just the fun is the reward. I mean, that's no question about it. So and the fun continues. Dave and I were just down at Keji on for a day or so playing with the telescope and giving them some. That's right. You did. You did. I heard lots of stories, but not this one. So anyway, well, I'm touched. Thank you, and thank you, Quinn, for coming to my. I'm sorry, I'm looking at you, and I should be looking at the camera. For coming to my award ceremony, and I'm glad you got one to make it worthwhile. So, it's good.
Well, congratulations, Chris. Well deserved.
Well, thank you. Now I can skip scotch. That's great. Anyway, say hello to Mo for me.
And, I will do that.
Yeah, and we'll be in touch soon.
Okay. See you in September.
See you in September. For sure.
So, congratulations again to both Quinn and to Chris on behalf of the board and all our members on their service award from the RASC. And as I mentioned earlier, they will be getting an email from National, and the award will be mailed to them later in the summer. So, next up on our agenda, now that excitement is concluded, is our guest speaker, Laura Mclarnon. And I asked Laura to send me her a brief bio, and I'm sure you'll chuckle along with me as I read it. And thank you, Laura. So Laura originally hails from Montreal, where she studied biology and then served 27 years as an air navigator based outside of Greenwood. She completed her Master's of Science Astronomy during this time and was posted to the Missile and Space domain in Colorado Springs. She retired in 2017 and has never looked back. As her body protested her 9 Ironman triathlon finishes, she changed her hobby to photography. Originally, she thought she would try to combine her love of astronomy and photography, but since she has the IQ of a baked potato after 10 p.m., sharp as a tack at 4 a.m., so she decided that bird photography was a better fit. So, an avid traveler, she's been to the Antarctica 3 times, which we should probably have her back and talk about her trips down there, and has always looked for her next bird lifer. So, Laura's going to address for us space medicine, a little bit of history on it, and what we need to look forward to in the future. So, Laura, welcome. Take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. The first thing I have to do is to fix a little glitch. Okay, and hopefully this, because I couldn't share. Okay, hang on a second. Okay, here we go. Oh, thank you. Okay, share. I'm coming. Don't worry. Took a second here. This might turn out to be horrendous. Not because I don't know what I'm talking. Well, I know what I'm talking about a little bit, but blame my French-Canadian mother, because my hands are going to go like this. And I know that when you're doing a Zoom thing, you should try and keep your hands flat. So anyways, I only have a certain amount of time and I've already taken up some of it. So we're going to start right away. So my name is Laura Mclarnon. I got interested in this when I took a course in space exploration. I was really curious to know how the evolution of the factors evolved from a medical point of view, and that they used those original Mercury astronauts as crash test dummies. Were they really predicting all this stuff? So pretty interesting stuff. I have a limited time frame, so away we go. And like I say, serious thing, get your, because We're going to first flight to World War II, then we're off to the moon, and then they decide to do nothing, aka I call it the Space Shuttle and ISS, and then we're going to talk about the known unknowns and extrapolate towards a mission towards Mars. So, like I said, this is very serious. So, wrong one. It's not a priest, a rabbi, and a pastor. It's a sheep, a rooster, and a duck. Now, what do they have in common? Well, they were the first passengers in a hot air balloon. So they were the very first animals to fly, basically. So these were hydrogen-filled balloons that they were basically made out of paper. Can you say? So the brothers from Paris, France, 1783, test their balloon, but they put the sheep, the duck, and the rooster. And the reason their metabolism is very similar to ours. And I can't make this stuff up, but they added the duck because the duck would be happy because it likes to fly. And they added the rooster because the rooster does not like to fly and he would be rather contrary to the whole experience. Anyways, 1,500 feet aloft, they went 2 miles, lasted 8 minutes. They all landed safely. But I must say, being in France, they were probably delicious afterwards. In October of 1783, there was the first tethered flight. There was actually a man in there. Interesting bit of trivia was that his name was Pilote. And although I'm not sure, I didn't research this, but I believe that was the origin of the term pilot. He was the first one to actually go up. So the first thing they did a tethered flight, 25 feet. And then the King of France, which was Louis XVI, decided that this was a wonderful thing. And he wanted to go higher, but they knew the risks. And he said, well, why don't we use condemned prisoners? And the Montgolfier said, no, we'd rather not. We'd rather have, some science and have somebody that knows what they're doing. So Pilote went back in the balloon, and it was the first untethered flight, lasted 25 minutes, and they went 5 miles. The funny thing is they could have gone a lot further, but like I said, this one was big. It was 50 feet. So it wasn't just satin and paper. They had the king of wallpaper of entire France, the big guy he made the balloon. So you had wallpaper, paper, and satin. Slightly flammable in a huge cauldron full of smoking embers. So Pilote decided that was getting a little different, a little dangerous. So he decided to bail out after a few miles. So they landed. And here I show you the timeline just to show you how human beings are. Once we've done something, it's very fast to make progressions. So 1785, they crossed the English Channel. 1784, they actually were starting to measure the T and Ps and the O2s. And they started to notice that people that were going higher were starting to get confused and they were feeling kind of funny. So they reached 30,000 feet before the 20th century. So not too bad. So now we're looking at powered flight, which was introduced in 1903. And for the First World War, this is when the whole aviation industry blew up. Because as we all know, the military-industrial complex, a lot of money is poured into research when you're fighting a war and you want to win. So the World War I, they were using the dirigibles, those hot air balloons, so they can have pinpoint accuracy with the bombs. And then they evolved into the biplane, the triplane. And the limiting factor to them was that they were made out of wood and were rather brittle. So they couldn't quite experience the high G turns or stuff like that, or the wings would just collapse and they'd fall down. World War II is when they started noting that human performance factors were becoming very important because now the planes were made of lightweight aluminum and you could attain some Gs and you could go higher. So they lost a lot of pilots figuring out the hazards of high Gs and a harsh environment. First jet aircraft was from the Germans in 39, 42, V1, V2, second. The Germans had a rocket-powered aircraft, and we broke the sound barrier in 47, just to give you some timelines here. Werner von Braun. Okay, this guy was an absolute genius in my mind. He was a SS officer, and he's the one that developed Operation that developed the V1, V2 rockets. Those things traveled 50 miles in the air and could travel 120-mile distance, and they were bombarding England with 1,300 of them. Anyways, after the war, it's either the captured German scientists either went to the States or they went to Russia. So von Braun and a few others were known as prisoners of peace, and they were stationed in Fort Bliss, Texas, to build up the ballistic missile technology. But they weren't allowed to leave the base. So Wernher von Braun got, as he quoted, a little bored, and he decided to do some math. Well, in 1952, he came out with a manifesto book, 91 pages, that he titled The Mars Project. And he described building a spacecraft in low Earth orbit using 3-stage rocket. His plan would require 46 reusable 3-stage rockets. It would include 950 ferry flights to build the 10 ships, and they would use the Hohmann transfer orbit. And for you, that I'm sure you guys all know, it's the path of least resistance to get to Mars. And he knew that this would happen every 25 months. And he said that with his invention, it would take them 8 months to get there using conventional power, or with the nuclear option, it could have taken 90 days. Now, what was interesting is that he even created a method of providing artificial gravity by marrying 2 of the spaceships and making them spin, which was absolutely brilliant. And he foresaw the problems with crew, psychological problems, and planned on crew rotations. He figured the first launch could be in 1965. And that could happen. And when Nixon decided to go with the space shuttle program back in 1969, he just lifted his arms like this, went, yeah, why are we doing this? And he quit in 1972. Okay, so now we're developing the space program. So the 1950s was not the best time to be a rhesus monkey. Because remember how I mentioned those sounding rockets that von Braun made? Well, they had a few left over and they brought to the States. Unfortunately, most of the monkeys survived the flight. They just did not survive the landing. They hadn't perfected that. But by 1951, they were actually able to get telemetry, realize that the monkeys could live for those few seconds in microgravity, and then they figured out about heat shields and parachutes enough that they can actually land. So in 51, the first monkey survived. So now they can work. But another big thing was that they realized that if you're laying down on your back perpendicular to the thrust is the best way to survive a high G load. So monkeys had to suffer, but we did learn a lot. Oh my gosh. I love this guy. You know, if you're next to this guy, you look pretty darn smart. Let's put it that way. This is Colonel Stapp. He was a flight surgeon, so he was fairly educated. But he had a fascination with ejection seats. But I should say he had a fascination with G-forces, but mostly deceleration. At the time, it was believed that the highest amount of instantaneous G impact, I'm not talking about sustained, that's totally different, is about 18 Gs. He said, I think I could do better. So he designed a 2,000-foot rail, and then he built a sled. So in 1954, he attached 6 rockets to it, produced 27,000 pounds of thrust, and when he came to a violent stop at the end of it, he sustained 22 Gs. So he shook himself off and he went back to the drawing board and said, I can do better. So the next time he put on 9 rockets. That created 40,000 pounds of thrust, 630 miles per hour, which he promptly stopped and experienced 40 Gs of it. Still alive, he burst every blood eyeballs. Space, all his ribs and both wrists. Believe it or not, the legend says he was on his hospital bed being visited by the higher ups, and he was designing a new sled with 12 rockets. And they said, no, you're done. You're not doing any more experiments. You are grounded. You are on a desk and you can extrapolate. So that he did. And he figured that a human body could sustain up to 45 Gs. So thank you very much, Colonel Stapp. NASA was established I love talking to an audience that knows this stuff. In 1958. I've never done this presentation, but I assume you all know what happened in October of 1957. I'd like to see some nods. Okay, that's the Sputnik was launched. So in 58, the government kind of freaked out and said, okay, instead of having data by the Air Force, the Navy, and the Army, we're going to all collaborate together and we're going to build NASA so we can consolidate all our missions. And their mission was to be the first man in space. So the no-net knows. The big things were they didn't know if you could eat, drink, urinate, a high G load. Actually, one of Werner von Braun's companions believed that once you entered microgravity, your cardiovascular system would cease to function. So a lot of tests needed to be done, and it was only in 1958 that we had the first parabolic flight where you can get 25 seconds of weightlessness and they can figure out what exactly were the effects. So the first program that was built was called the Mercury program. I'm sure you're all aware of it. They just wanted, the whole purpose of that was A, if man could survive, if B, they could do an orbit, and C, if they could return both the capsule and the astronaut in one piece. So they selected these top-notch Top Gun fighter pilots because they thought that they could handle the G loads. So, but unfortunately, the first flight was done by Ham the monkey. He had 200 hours of training and was going to be only 16 minutes. It was going to be the exact same thing as Alan B. Shepard. And he was weightless for 7.5 minutes. During this time, he had to press some buttons so he can look around. That man could survive. They did notice a slight increase during the high Gs, but upon examination, upon his return, they saw that. So they weren't sure. So the next time they sent up Enos. He was a chimp that had a lot more training, and he was a good little chimp because things went bad that maybe people didn't hear of. He did 1,300 hours of training and orbital flight. So he did 2 orbits, 3 hours, 21 minutes, and he wanted to test the motor skills. So, but in this case, if he pressed a button, he would get a pellet of food. If he pressed another button, the wrong button, he would get a zap. Unfortunately, what people don't know is that the zapper malfunctioned, so he was being zapped the entire time. But that little monkey still did everything as he was supposed to. So they noticed that he could eat, he could drink, he could urinate. They did notice abnormal cardiac rhythms, and they had planned on sending another monkey. However, the human monkeys decided that they did not want that because they were seriously being upstaged by a monkey. So here's a summary of everything that went on. And what you'll see is that the first one was 15 minutes and up to 11 Gs, nothing that a fighter pilot can't handle. It was only on Mercury 6 that John Glenn did some exercise, and they noticed an elevated heart rate, but it did come back down. So that told them that they could do work in space. And this is where it gets interesting. Mercury 8 and 9, when they were 9 hours and the other one was 34 hours, they started to notice that there was an orthostatic imbalance, which means that when they came off the flight, their legs were very wobbly. They also noticed that there was calcium in their urine, which is indicative of bone loss. So they started tweaking themselves, wondering, okay, what's going on here? Gemini missions were soon to follow. And the whole purpose of the Gemini mission was to conduct a rendezvous and to do an EVA. So 2 people per mission. So what they noticed is that the longer the trips, it was everybody had weight loss, were dehydrated, and their blood showed certain differences that we're going to get into. But here, if you notice, it's almost a linear doubling every time. But if you notice, the bone loss is not linear. So this was actually good news because they noticed that eventually the bone loss will stabilize. It was still unacceptably high, but at least it's not a linear progression. EVAs had to be, the new suit had to be totally reconstructed. I believe that it was Ed White that did the first one. And I guess that when he finished the EVA, I guess he almost dumped like a few pounds of sweat out of his boots at the end of it because they didn't attach, they didn't have tethers, and it was just a poor design. So it was good findings at that. The big thing that they notice is that most astronauts, 70 to 75% at least, suffer from horrible space motion sickness. And no matter how they tried, no matter how many of those cruise patches they put on their head, nothing helps. So what they realized at that point is that no mission critical should be conducted until day 4. So now they're starting to think about the physiological implications of a space mission. They also, the astronauts were reporting radiation. At first, they had no idea what it was caused for, but they finally discovered that it was probably caused by the cosmic radiation that was flickering in their eyes. And also, astronauts are very much prone to cataracts after flights, and you can understand why. And the blood we'll talk about in a few seconds. So the Van Allen belts are what keeps us safe. They trap all the high energy particles, and any mission is considered quite safe within the inner belt. So 300 up to 345 mile. That's why the ISS is at 254. So well within the safe zone. But they knew that the belts would prove to be dangerous for the astronauts. So there was this operation called Operation Starfish Prime. I don't know if anybody's heard of it, but it was basically a 1.4 megaton explosion in outer space to see if they can blow away the Van Allen's belts so they can make a path. Well, all that happened is that they just trapped more radiation. So they realized that no, that would not work. But it put an end to space tests. Let's put it that way. Oops, sorry. All right. So after the Apollo mission, Nixon decided that the next thing to use would be not spend so much money by using a reusable spacecraft. What he didn't tell people is most of the missions were highly classified. They were launching, it was a lot of military operations. They did some science, but pre-ISS, it was mostly to launch missiles. They launched the Hubble telescope, so that's good. Some science, not much. The idea came in 1984 to start building a ISS. I believe the first passenger was in 2000. I'm not exactly sure on that one. But for the space shuttle, for a cost-saving mission, $1 billion per mission is not cost-saving. But that's what they decided to go for. Next slide. Now we get into the meat of the matter. And that's the medical discussion. So we're going to talk what happens to you in space and how it could affect a Mars mission. Cardiovascular, ability to do work, the effect on the blood, the muscles, the bones, and the neurovascular. Okay, so for the cardio, the first thing that's going to happen when you're in the supine position is all the fluids, your blood, all the water is going to pool in your chest. And the first grows by 20% because there's so much pressure on. And the enzymes in your body are telling the kidneys to get rid of fluids, or you've lost 20% of blood volume. And so that's why they always have to wear big boy diapers when they go and when they launch, when they recover, and when they do EVAs. So the blood pressure, heart side increased by 20%. And right away after just 6 hours, the blood volume was down 20%, mostly in the way of the water in the plasma. But what's important here is that these are all not because they're bad, it's because how quickly we evolved to the space environment. So you're perfectly fine at a blood volume that's 20% less because you don't need as much oxygen to be supported for the muscles in order to function. So everything, their VO2 max stayed the same when they were in space. They could do the same amount of exercise, but as soon as they landed, a marathoner would probably run 1 mile and sound like a 5-pack-a-day smoker because they just could not absorb the oxygen to feed the muscles and ground. And as far as hematology is concerned, this one was a surprise to me, but when you think about it, not really. Because of zero gravity, the red blood cells are no longer circular. They can actually change size And when they change size, they lose the ability to hold on to the hemoglobin molecules that hold on to the oxygen. So that's why their VO2 max up in space is fine, because you don't need as much. But when you get back to Earth, it becomes a real issue. Muscles. As we all know, if you don't use them, you're going to lose them. We have over 700 muscles in our body, but there are two types. And what's interesting is that at first NASA got it all wrong. When I first did the research on this was back in about 2004, I realized as a triathlete that their whole exercise regimen was wrong. But finally it changed, so somebody realized it. Because the postural muscles, think of a marathoner. You want long distance, long duration exercise at minimal effort. Whereas the type 2 muscles are your sprinter muscles, so your big muscles, the ones where you want to start doing weights. So when they first started the Skylab and stuff like that, they were doing a lot of resistance training, a lot of muscular to hopefully not lose so much bone mass and muscle mass. But now what they're doing on the ISS is they have to exercise between 2 and 2.5 hours a day. And the vast majority of that is done on a treadmill. I hear the treadmill is terrible to use, but it is the only way of preventing the muscle loss. They started noticing, how did they know that they were losing muscles? They noticed nitrogen in their urine after 4 days. So after only 30 days, they lose 20% of their muscle mass, but it seems to stabilize. And the big problem is once you land and you don't have the muscle mass, you can easily sprain. And with the bone loss also, you break bones, sprain, so it's very easy to get injured. So now talking about bones, usually an average person, an elderly person will lose about 1% per year. If you're an astronaut, you're using 1% per month. That adds up to quite a bit. And because you're leaching so much calcium, you are extremely prone to kidney stones. Cells are not being created. Partially that the astronauts will 5% of their density on Mars. From Mars, sorry. It's an increased risk of fracture. What you eat, you take, we all know calcium, you can only at a time. So for people taking all these extra supplements, yeah, you're creating expensive urine.
Laura, if I could interrupt you just for a second.
Please.
I think your wireless bandwidth is quite flaky, so your voice is getting broken up. So maybe if you could just turn your video off, it might make the audio work better.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That'll probably be better, I suspect. Thank you.
Okay. Should I go back a few slides or everything's good?
Maybe one slot.
Okay. Got it. Oh, stand by. Okay, so we talked about the neurovestibular. That's when your ears and eyes are not cooperating and you feel sick and you're going to barf. Like I say, the only way to mitigate that is not do important missions during the first 4 days. After that, you usually stabilize. So radiation, I thought, was going to turn into a bigger problem when I first started doing this presentation. But actually, from the latest data, it's not as bad. So if you notice here, 6 months on the ISS, roughly 0.88. But you have the equivalent of 180 days in space is equivalent to 500 days on Mars. So now they realize how important shielding is going to be for the spacecraft. So I gave you some example of radiation doses. So 8 days on the space shuttle per day, 0.7. 9 days Apollo, because they were outside the area, so it's almost double. So you can see that the radiation gets much, much higher once we're beyond low Earth orbit. Skylab was poorly designed, so they were frying at 2 millisieverts per day. ISS was 0.75 per day. A 3-year mission to Mars, the actual number that I saw, and it dated to 2020, was 0.88 millisieverts per day. So not too bad. In Halifax, just the background radiation that we get, just natural radiation, that's what we get. Chest X-ray 0.1, a CT scan. Now, At first, I had heard before that water shielding was supposed to be very effective to combat cosmic radiation. But now I just read today that lithium is turning out to be a very good protection against radiation. So I'll probably read up a little bit more on that. Today, I just did not have the time. But just be aware, there's going to be quite the fight for lithium. What I now think is the most important factor is, I'm sorry, I just realized that my video is off, so I can use my hands as much as I can. Animation now. Okay, so I think the biggest barrier to a mission to Mars is the psychological factor. This is what happened when they put crews and isolated them and kind of tried to emulate what would happen if you put a bunch of people together in a long-term mission. Well, the Antarctic crew, it was a downright psychosis. There had to be an air evac out. Other than that, it was serious. And when they say depression, we're talking severe depression, personnel conflict. And I could tell you right now, if they were looking for volunteers for this, I would never be accepted because I cannot play nice with the other children if the other children are fools. So it's not going to happen. So what you need is a very special person. And what they decided is, why not look at the nuclear submarine selection process in the US? When it was originally started, they had over attrition rate. And now that was not good because that's probably one of the most expensive training that goes on in the Navy other than jet fighters. And if you compare the environment, it's the exact same thing as the mission to Mars. You have no personal space. You can't escape the idiots at work. There's no sunlight. Your circadian rhythms are going to be totally gone. And you're always in danger. And you're always under tension. So what they decided to do in the submarine environment is they started up a whole bunch of psychological testing that you could not cheat on. It was all multiple choice, and then they had very specific interviews, and now the dropout rate is less than 4%. So something they're doing is right. And we have to rethink the candidate. If you think back to the original Mercury 7, where they were tough as nail, faced danger. Well, they were also type A personalities that probably did not get along on a crew. I've seen it before on the Aurora. There's some people that would come and you could see they would not work as a team. So what's important nowadays is what we call crew resource management. It's just everybody has a point of view. Everybody's point of view must be heard. And you have to learn how to work through conflict, through discussion, and respecting everybody. It's not a job for everybody. Like I said, I'd never be able to do it. So there has to be a chain of command, but that top dog in the chain of command has to have excellent interpersonal skills. Okay. So I just extrapolated. Do I think we can go to Mars? Absolutely. What we need to change is the amount of funding. We could have been at Mars in 1972. Private interest, Elon Musk, the Falcon Heavy is really gearing us towards an interest in Mars. Out of the NASA budget, which is shown here in dollars, 50% is for manned spaceflight. So you can tell when they were about to put a man on the moon, they really, and then you can see that in the they were developing the space shuttle. Dwindling down here at 0.5%, but at 4.5%, we can be there. So discussion points. These are all things that make for fun discussions at a party. Is a mission to Mars possible? I think it is, but I've heard arguments against. But once they get there, we have to have astronauts that are able to work. Fortunately, the G load is only 40% of what it is on Earth. So hopefully all the physiological differences won't make that much difference when they get there. And then how will they? Questions?
Thanks so much for that, Laura.
You're very welcome.
A lot of food for thought. We'll field questions now. Are there any questions in the chat, Bob? No? Any questions for Laura from the floor here in the room?
This is Dave Lane. Just a question that I have is I'm pretty sure you gave a talk similar to this quite a while ago. Maybe at the Minus Astronomy group. I'm not sure. I'm just wondering if your sort of opinions about this field have changed much in the last decade or so.
I think the interest is still there, but it seems like they're pushing for the moon a lot more. And this is just Laura talking Laura. But if you think about it, if you establish a moon base, that would also be a good scaffolding to build a bigger spaceship. Because, like it or not, it's not going to be a capsule that's going to go to Mars. You're going to have to build something that's going to be able for a crew to live in for 6 months of the journey. So I don't think it's on the back burner yet. I think there's a lot of interest, but I think the moon is where the next destination right now.
Okay, and I guess along the same lines, Elon Musk has been in the news a lot the last couple of years with his Starship project, including many spectacular explosions, which are fun to watch.
Mhm.
Just curious if what you think of that sort of platform, essentially completely non-governmental, um, as a way forward, or do you think he'll get bored and switch to something else in a
Well,
year?
if you're asking me to psychoanalyze Elon Musk, I'd rather pass because I'm just not sure. As far as space travel, there's going to have to be some sort of consortium before you travel, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Okay, so like tourists to the moons and stuff like that. There's going to have to be there's going to have to be some sort of international treaty there. But as far as a spacecraft to go to Mars, I really think that something along of The Martian, that movie, that was really good to show you about the size that you would need to get to Mars. So Falcon Heavy is a good way to start building it. But other than that, I really don't know. I'd be guessing.
Oh, sorry, just a second. There's one question here in the room.
Hi, Laura. It's Paul Heath. One of the things I've noticed in some of the media is a possibility of building a Skylab around Mars prior to doing any major development there. Would that be a solution to a lot of the psychological and maybe medical conditions that we're expecting for the trip? Like building something on the moon and send it to Mars as like a space station before the landing development?
You should see me. I'm nodding right now. Yeah, that really helps. Actually, you hit it right on the head because, first of all, well, the first thing they had to do was find water on Mars, which they found because that provides your water, your fuel, your oxygen, everything. So I think if I was to plan this mission to Mars, here I am using my hands again, I would say that that's what I would do. It would just be a base outside that would be orbiting outside, and then they could just go down until they form a better Mars base. They would have to have some sort of a shuttle program. And being the G's are not that extensive, and if they had water, then the propulsion would not be such an issue.
Okay, thank you. Bob, any questions come through on the chat? Well, thanks so much, Laura, for this. Truly appreciate it. I'm sure that'll give us some food for thought when we're looking at these dear souls that actually do head out to the moon and points beyond, as to what they are going through, physiologically speaking, and perhaps psychologically as well. So thanks so much for this.
Okay, you're welcome. Have a great day.
Thank you. Now, before we have our 15-minute break, I just have a really quick announcement, and I apologize to those of you that are out in Zoom land because you don't have access to it. But there are some books here on the table that members here are welcome to look at. If you would like to have one of these books, help yourself. Free of charge. They're free for the asking. So help yourselves. They are giveaways. They are old editions of books that we either have duplicates for or were not deemed appropriate for our library. So that's why they're here as giveaways. It is now 2:13. We'll say 2:15. We'll see you at 2:30. All right. Welcome back, everyone. Our next speaker is John Reed. For those of us in the center, many of us know him because of his numerous books that he's published, about 50 things that. But also John served as a member of our board a while back and certainly was on our Nova East planning committee, and a couple of our t-shirts were designed by John over the years. He's addressed our center past about various other topics as well. And he serves as the host of the YouTube channel Learn to Stargaze. John holds a degree in astrophysics from SMU and is currently pursuing a master's in space systems engineering at Johns Hopkins University. And today he's here to talk to us about a piece of land that he's acquired recently and is offering up to folks interested in the night sky. So John, I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks for letting me come and talk to you guys on such short notice. I'll try and stand in front of the camera here. And okay, is that right? Okay. Yeah. I heard that, Dave. 50 crazy ideas of John Reed, maybe. My wife is like, you gotta stop executing on all your ideas. Like our lives are getting very full. Yeah, so I'm here to talk about Stargaze Nova Scotia. So what is it? Hit this button to go forward. It's a 26-acre stargazing site located just 30 minutes from downtown Halifax. And I know there's a lot to go into. And so basically I was working on a YouTube video. And so I did a rough cut just for you guys. And I'm hoping that answers almost any questions you might have. So I expect Q&A to be very short. I doubt it will be, but we'll see. Okay, Dave, do you want to cue up the video? You can go right into it. It'll work. Okay. Hey everyone, I'm John Reed from Learn to Stargaze, author of several popular stargazing books, including 110 Things to See with a Telescope. Thanks to your support, liking, sharing, subscribing, and spreading the word about our channel, our community is growing. As you probably guessed from the title of this video, in order to share the wonders of the night sky more effectively, we purchased some land. And we're going to call this place Stargaze Nova Scotia. We believe that the wonders of the night sky should be accessible to everyone. We wanted to create a special place as close to the city as possible, but where it's dark enough that people can truly immerse themselves in the beauty of the night sky. Additionally, this location will serve as the backdrop for future videos and serve as the setting and inspiration for the creation of new stargazing guidebooks, including a sequel to 110 Things to See with a Telescope. Let's take a few minutes to update you on the progress we made over the last few months. About 1,000 feet off the road, just with an amazing view of the river here. So hopefully we'll watch this movie in a few years. There'll be lots of decks and people up here. All right, so this might be the first cut that kicks off Stargaze Nova Scotia. Here's the trail we just cut. There's Mrs. Stargaze. Hi! So I've got my bush cutter here, and Jen has this chainsaw blade, which just came off, so I have the tools in the car to fix that. We cut a path through here so that we can start figuring out where parking lot's going to be. All right, here we've got our first night trip out to Stargaze Nova Scotia. We're about to go into the woods right over here. Hey, Tariq. Hey.
Good idea if I take it from the bottom angle, very low angle, right on top of it.
Look at that! It's so cool! This is Learn to Stargaze! Alright, let's hit this with a 3-minute exposure. Alright, I need to head home soon, so I might try and hit some more targets. I'm going to stop this at only 6 minutes because there's just so much here. You know, I know really we should do an hour on every target, but I just want to see what else we can see out here. It's just so dark. So we think we found the edge of the property, but currently we can't find the survey marker. It's down here somewhere, probably about right here. So we're going to keep looking. We may need to come back with a metal detector. 5 into the road construction. We've got the excavator here. Now we're going to zigzag up these switchbacks up the hill, and that gets us here to the stargazing plateau. So this is really exciting progress.
So far, so good. It's a great property. Love working on here. Great view from up here. John's been a great fellow to work for. Thanks. Well, I definitely will be bringing the kids here for sure on one of your events.
Let's go get some paddles, some life jackets, and let's go explore this lake. We're situated on beautiful Big Lake, Nova Scotia. If you look at a light pollution map, we're here, just into a blue zone. But there's nothing to the south of us, so our views of the Milky Way from this location will be out of this world. This property has almost 1,000 feet of shoreline. Someday, we'd love to line the shoreline here with stargazing cabins, with the front of the cabins facing the lake, maybe with your own dock and canoe, with the back of the cabins facing the southern sky, the perfect place to set up your telescope.
Here's the entrance to the property. We built this lane a few weeks ago, and we think it's a great opportunity to involve our subscribers. We'd love to hear your suggestions on naming this lane. Drop your ideas in the comments, and we'll choose the best name together. Here we have our parking lot, which can accommodate 10 cars. One of the challenges of stargazing is the interference from car headlights. Fortunately, most of our stargazing activities will take place at the top of the hill, which should effectively block the light from cars. Here's the path to our stargazing site. This lane needs a name too, so leave a note in the comments and let us know what you think.
As we continue to develop this site, our future upgrades will include provisions for tour buses to either pull through or turn around. Considering our proximity to Peggy's Cove, Nova Scotia, we have a considerable opportunity to attract tourists from all over the world. We also hope to include year-round lodging in the form of a stargazer's lounge and cabins along the lake. Other ideas for this site include a small planetarium so that we can teach people about the skies night or day and in any weather. We'd also love to include a space research facility to be used by universities and the local space community. There is so much more to explore here at Stargaze Nova Scotia. Be sure to subscribe to Learn to Stargaze to get the most of your stargazing experience, and consider joining our Patreon page. We're so excited to share this experience with you. And remember, the future is looking up. Yeah, so now that you've got the video, I can probably fly through these slides pretty quick. I know last time I spoke here, we went way over. Yeah, it was Animals in Space. It was the last chat or last meeting before COVID. Yeah, so that would have been March 2020. Yeah. Yeah, so why Big Lake? Well, why in Halifax? Well, this site, you know, it's for everyone. We want people there. Close and it's dark. It's, you know, in HRM dark. You know, we just believe that Halifax needed a place where everyone could view the wonders of the night sky. We're just 30 minutes from Halifax, and it's basically in a blue zone. So we're Bortle 3 or 4. But we do face, it's dark to the south, which, you know, it's really hard to show what things look like on a slide. That's some of the darkest skies I've seen outside of Keji when we were there in February. Okay. But isn't it foggy there? So I've gotten a lot of questions like, yeah, a couple people from Prospect are like, it's kind of foggy here in the summer. Well, you know, cruise ships don't, if you're entertaining a tour bus crew, you know, they're not there at night anyway. And so a big focus will be on making it a year-round facility. A lot of daytime amenities like the planetarium, and we want to do a permanent walk the solar system trail as well. And I've already started cutting that. I've cut about 1 kilometer so far in the trail. Yeah. All right. So here's the plan, which I'd like to have done by 2024. So these roads are in place. About in the middle here, the land slopes up by about 40 feet, and there's a tree line there. So wherever you are on the binocular deck and in the plateau, you can't see the parking lot. I'd like to include 2 observatories in the next year, one that's a roll-off roof and one designed for astrophotography.
as well as some storage. And we do have a lodge that's designed right now. It's designed by the log cabin people there on Prospect Road. Except due to the fire risk, I'm thinking maybe a log cabin, is not a long-term solution. Yeah, so we'll probably rethink that. There's just some photos. There's the chairs we put in, and the road as it was being constructed up to the top of the rise here. You can see Big Lake Lodge in the background. And I think on the internet, there's quite a few, night sky photos that people that used to stay at the lodge, that I don't think is operational right now, have taken of the sky from here. There's the upper parking lot, different angles. This is a drone shot taken by Tiffany Fields' partner. Yeah, did some drone photography for us. And then some of the night sky shots. We were there in February, but we didn't stay too late. So most all these shots are within about 40 minutes of sunset. You can see the Andromeda Galaxy there. It was still pretty amazing. Like there wasn't, so St. Margaret's Bay would be, this photo is toward that direction. You can see a little bit of a glow, but not too much. That's the glow of sunset there with Venus and Jupiter. And okay, there we go. We're dancing. And then you can see Orion. This is the Orion Nebula in the middle, and lots of satellites and airplanes going by in this, 20-second exposure here. I think that's Tariq up on the hill doing some of his own photography. And these are just a couple 3-minute and 12-minute exposure, and I didn't have any filters. This is a 40 millimeter lens at a focal length of I think 180 millimeters, so pretty wide angle, but really short exposures here, just because it was cold. February, want to go home. Blank slide. Yeah, here's the original design for the Stargazers Lodge. Basically, we wanted a place where about 30 people could meet, and toying with the idea of having Stargaze or astronomy club type meetings out there too on occasion, and also to have just beds and facilities for anyone that wants to sleep out there and not drive home in the middle of the night. All right, how will it work? We're still trying to work that out. One of our ideas was access for members. If I'm not there, via a membership program of some sort of like, members here can access SCO. And then for the public, they could come during events. So maybe one event per month for a meteor shower and explore the moon night, or a public stargazing night on a new moon, possible events. During the daytime, walk the solar system, could have access for private stargazing events, and we could rent out the facilities. Certainly after the stargazing lounge is there, some gazebos, use it for weddings, that sort of thing. And then I recently found out that the planetarium from UPEI, which is currently at Great Island Adventure Park in PEI, they're planning to, bulldoze it within the year. And so I'm going to make a trip out there tomorrow night and probably visit it early next week, just to see if there's anything salvageable about the planetarium. It's been abandoned on that lot in Cavendish, Prince Edward Island for a few years now. So we'll see how it goes. Another crazy idea is, the space shuttle is pretty old and decrepit there. If anyone's been to Great Island Adventure, but he says if we could cut it up and take it, we could have it. And so, that was a kind of a crazy conversation to have. Yeah, just the space shuttle. Sure. Yeah. So phase 2. So one of the questions might be, okay, well, how are you actually going to make money? Our original idea of getting the land was really just as, one, a set for the YouTube channel, because we do have sponsors, and like All Star Telescope and Celestron as will occasionally sponsor videos. But it would be far more profitable to set up cabins that, a 2-bedroom cabin will rent for about $300 a night all year, or most of the year anyway. And so there's a business opportunity there to put some cabins on the land as well. And I would make sure that there's stargazing cabins so that you wouldn't have any white light projecting, outward.
and with each one would have a space to set up your telescope in the backyard. So the next step, currently there's not a washroom there. We have a washroom tent and a little plastic toilet, but we actually need to build a washroom. I need to get some estimates for the things we want to build, and then start filling out grant applications, because we've been talking to some people in the provincial government, and they're quite interested in getting people excited about space. They just need solid ideas and an execution strategy on how to do that. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I talked to Tim for about an hour last week, and we'll reconnect in the next coming weeks as well. But just rough estimates for what I want to do in the next year. You know, washrooms will probably cost $5,000. A sky circle, we're doing the binocular stuff, 15 grand. 20 grand for roll off roof observatories. They're probably conservative. $25,000 for basic domed observatory, $10,000 for a gazebo, and then the Stargazer's land, or Stargazer's lodge, which could of course be financed and then pay for itself in terms of rentals. That's the idea. What can RASC members do? Well, help us by coming with me and stargaze. I'll try to be out there when it's dark, and just get some stargazing in, get a feel for the land, and then get feedback. How can we make the site better? Do astrophotography and share your images. Tag. We've got a Facebook page now. We'll probably set up Instagram. If you take any photos there, tag us. Get the word out. Saying this, I wrote this during the fires. Help us with sustainability, forest management. I'll probably have some days where I might ask for some friends to come out and just clean up some of the brush to make it less of a fire hazard. Most of the land that's not on the granite is pretty swampy, so it's not a huge risk. But definitely, if you saw when Jen was in the canoe, pretty dry on the shore. And my big audacious hairy goal here is to set up a research station on the land as well. And so, as some of you know that follow me on Facebook, I love going to the Analog Astronaut Conference every year in Tucson and meeting these people that put themselves in seclusion in sort of these in these situations. I just met Ashley Kowalski, who was in Russia underground for almost the entire Ukraine war, and he became famous, which was incorrect, as the only American who didn't know that the war was going on, which is not true. Mission Control told her, and they gave her an out, but she ended up staying through the whole mission there. That was interesting. But basically, your space research center, and I think there's some stuff that we could do that are unique to Canada and unique to Nova Scotia that no one else is doing, and that's a focus on aquaponics. So coming up with ideas to grow fish on the moon or Mars as a protein source. In addition to hydroponics, I don't think a lot of the other humans in the loop research stations, with the exception of Biodome or Biosphere 2, have done hydroponics well. And robotics, Canada is definitely known for its space robotics, so giving them a place to test it. Having just that positive pressure laboratory and access to that, I think, is something that would be unique. Yeah, and then virtual reality, augmented reality, and extended reality integration, I think, is super important, especially for long duration space flights. If you can put a helmet on and pretend you're not on the ship, apparently that really helps with the psychology of the whole situation. Okay. Yeah, different areas of research that are important to Canada. Do that. Here's just a basic idea of what I think that would look like. You've got a building to simulate surface missions, so you pretend that's surface of Moon or Mars. Your biggest area where people can hang out is where you're doing your hydroponics, basically your garden, and then you have labs, workshops, place to do your aquaponics, and an airlock. Get in and out, crew quarters, and then you create your positive pressure environment with a lung. So basically, it's a passive pressurization system where you just have a big concrete weight lying on a big sheet of rubber, and the weight pushes down on the rubber, which pressurizes your habitat to about 1 psi over what's going on outside. So here's a map of the whole property. You can see along the lake. This is I've got 9 cabins mapped out here, I think. Spot for the planetarium. Stargaze Nova Scotia is in the center, with the Space Research Center actually hidden in almost a valley all of its own. Over there. And some examples. This is, I think there's only 2 of these in Canada right now, at least for doing analog stations. This one is in Nunavut. And so I know Dr. Ozinski from Western, he sends his crew up there all the time. A friend of mine it's in a little bit of disrepair right now, so they're going up to fix it this month or next. They do a lot of these in the States, of course. Here's an example from University of North Dakota. They have a small hydroponics lab. They do a lot of, biological research. They test their rovers, that sort of thing. Lots of fun for the participants. And I just think this is pretty cool. All of the systems and computer systems to run this kind of positive pressure space research environment, all that's already done. So there's plug and play systems to manage your facility that already exists. You basically just get CO2 sensors and oxygen sensors, and it'll tell you how many plants, if you've got humans in the loop, how many plants you need to plant, how many mushrooms you need to grow to like suck up extra oxygen, stuff like that. Kind of cool system. It's called SIMOC. And I thought this was cool. So the example that they use in the presentations for analog astronauts in general is it has a big Canadian flag on it. It's called Mount Calgary or something. So I thought that was cool. And this is Kai Strauss, I think, and he's one of the current designers of a lot of these research facilities. Anyway, that's Stargaze Nova Scotia in a nutshell. So questions? Dave, and then Judy.
Yes.
What do I don't know the meaning of the question. I have 3 boys. One of them's at the back of the room.
Do I ask it again? I just asked John, what do you do when you're bored?
Are we live?
John, where's your access? I see the road you built. Is it off the Peggy Cove Road?
Yeah, so it's off Prospect Road. I believe it's the same as Peggy Cove Road when it gets down there. Yeah. Yep. It's right by, you can't miss it. It's right past the East Dover community sign where it says choir practice.
Okay, good.
Choir practice
Gotcha.
at 9 a.m. Can't miss it.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
Okay, before my question, I did go to your YouTube and suggest names for the roads.
Oh, you did?
Of course. I want to get the prize, right?
Wonderful.
So my question is, I did notice some structures nearby on adjacent land. Maybe there was only one, but in general, if you have further development in the area and people start putting up country homes, how are you going to manage the light trespass and glare? I don't think the light pollution would add up to much, but the glare, like the sky glow wouldn't be bad, but the glare and trespass, how would you manage that?
Yeah, so I've been thinking a lot about that. We're lucky that a lot of the land around it is protected. And so there's minimal risk of, the light domes growing. There's 2 street lights at the corners that you can see from certain places on the property. And the hope is that having the roll-off roof observatory would provide some protection from those light sources. And we'd also like to work with the community and get the light trespass from that mitigated. Another thing that I'd like to consider, and I'm not sure it's a huge risk, the rest of the lake. We don't own that south shore of the lake. One option would be to see if we can acquire that in the next few years so that no one can build on it, and to protect it as a nature preserve or anything to make sure that it doesn't get built on. But 2, our land blocks that access. Like you would need a road through our property to get to that. It's a long way around. And so, if we don't let them build a road, they can't build houses. So, so those are a couple ways. But I would like to make it a dark sky preserve eventually, and just some research that I have to do when I get bored someday.
I'm just curious, what is the I keep doing practical matters. What is the land zoned as?
I don't know the exact zoning, but from everyone I talked to, it's like you could have put a holiday in there, basically.
Yeah, I'm just saying. So far, you've built roads. Have you actually talked to the city planners to see what you're actually allowed to do there?
Not
You can't do anything in the city without involving.
yeah, not directly, but when we bought the land and talked to the lawyers, they're like, yeah, you could do this, this, and this without any issue as private property.
Well, if it's zoned forest land, you can't put buildings on it. If it's zoned,
Yeah, it's not zoned forest. It's zoned residential something something or residential commercial something something.
yeah. Usually, land in Nova Scotia, land that's on a provincial trunk highway is way more flexible than any other road, just because the default was, there might be a gas station and then a house next door to each other. So usually they're mixed. But yeah.
Yeah, that's another way we can make money.
Whatever.
Well, it's funny because we get that comment like, well, what are you bought this land, you're making roads on it. Why didn't you just give it back to the nature? Well, we wouldn't have bought it, and then it would have gone to a gas station or a Holiday Inn, or so in that sense, I think most of us would rather a stargazing park than a big hotel or a superstore.
In that area, you've got a lot of industry, cranberry bogs, the fairly big industry. Do you have any of the cranberry bogs on site? Because that could be a revenue source. No, I'm saying
I'll have to check.
I've dove in that area like for years. So I mean, there's and also that area has two zones. The one primary one is where the 111, the Swiss Air 111 monument is.
Yeah.
That area is the reason the monument was put there was because it's a protected nature zone, because the plant life there are certain species that are only found here and in the Arctic.
Mhm.
So if you could do a like that area, see if there's any of the rare species in that on the land site, you could get a protected zone, have the area protected in that regard.
Stop walking on.
Yeah, it may restrict certain areas, but I mean, there's some things you could look at for developing protection for the site itself.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd love to hear more ideas as well. So I'm just John at learntostargaze.com. Feel free to send me all your ideas and take them to heart.
Are there any questions from the remote participants?
And to follow us, and you'd be probably the first one besides my mom. You can follow us on Facebook, and we've got Stargaze Nova Scotia now has its own Facebook page, and that's where we'll be posting things like, hey, bring your telescope. We're gonna just have a casual astronomy night. There's some things we need to figure out first, like insurance and whatnot. Insurance is a big deal.
You might also want to consider putting it on the discussion list for the center too.
Right.
Because some of us don't go to Facebook.
Right. So I'll let someone else can post whatever they see on Facebook, they can post it to the discussion groups. Yeah. Did we just Stargaze Nova Scotia? If it's searchable yet. It's only about 2 days old, so.
One word. All separate.
Searchable, it should be as separate.
Got it.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Have our first follower. Actually, I think my mom. Well, that would be my wife and I. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for this, John, on several fronts. Number one, thanks for coming and presenting this to us, but also thank you for having vision to have something like this so close to us, and for not just for stargazing, but for looking at science as well at the same time. So thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Next on our agenda is Chris Young, a recent award winner. And a surprise there. Oh, thank you. Yes, Chris is going to tell us a bit about Nova East this year.
So just a little update. We have Nova East is going to start on Friday, the 18th of August. We'll shortly have the website all up and going with information. I think it's sort of up now, but we need to populate it with some information. The theme this year is stars and birds. and we have our T-shirt is almost finished being designed, and it's by the same artist that did last year's, Lisa Ann. Thank you, Lisa. Much appreciate that. We have our keynote speaker is Jason Dane. Jason has been recently up in Scandinavia, and as I said, our theme is about birds and the sky. Jason is both an astrophotographer and also a bird photographer, so we're looking forward to a good talk from him. And we have others giving us talks, including Pat Kelly and Dave Chapman will be talking as well. In terms of the sort of format and what to expect, if you were there last year, then we hope to potentially do the same things as we did last year. It would be somewhat simplified. We will have an astronomer's lounge, the astronomer's breakfast of coffee, tea, donuts, muffins, and healthy things. As always, Judy will be there. And we anticipate we'll do a little bit of stuff for those at the campground, but we hope to kind of allow for some segregation if you want to keep distance as much as COVID's supposed to be over. Nonetheless, things hang around. Some of us are more immune compromised than others. So we'll be doing that. And so we'll have some of the activities and talks will be listed shortly on the website, and you'll be able to send your request in to Pat Kelly, who's our registrar. And anyway, we look forward to hearing from you soon. Very good. Thank you, Judy.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah. Thank you. And we're looking forward to stargazing out at Smiley's Park for Nova East, but for now, because of the fire restrictions, the land restrictions right now, land use, our observatory is closed temporarily until the province changes its tune with respect to off-road use, camping, fishing, etc. So please do not plan to go out to SCO until the province alerts us that we can go back into the woods. Yep. It's just a reminder of the dates of things. And the photograph that you see there is from from last year's Nova East. That was during one of our obviously sky tours that he took that photograph. But just a reminder to people that there was an email that went out recently regarding the annual general meeting for the RASC that happens on June 25th. So please register and don't do what I did. When you click here to register, after you've clicked to register, scroll down to the bottom of the page, which I didn't do. And I go, okay, where's the email? Why can't I register? You have to tell them how many people you want to come and who you are. So don't forget to scroll down to the bottom of the page. Also, our coming up in August are two of our events, the Kedem-Kujuk DSW, which is the nights of August 11 through 13, and our Nova East Star Party, which Chris just told us about, in August 18 to 21. Our next members meeting is September the 9th, so we've got the summer off. There are no further meetings for July and August. So please be alerted to that. And our next board meeting for those board members out there is September the 5th. And one of the things that we're going to propose, and so members can start thinking about, is what would you like to alert the other members about? Things you're doing, things you're seeing, equipment you've got, books you've read, anything that's exciting that you figure you'd like to share with other members. Please let us know, because our hope is that there will be enough of you out there that we can focus the whole October meeting around members and their excitement. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And I think that's it for the presentation there. So we'll go to the next person, which I believe is Paul. And Dave will get his slide up. And Paul is our resident poet, so he will read his poem.
Oh, no, I wanted to comment the fact that Quinn was one of the main people that got me into outreach. He encouraged me and supported me over the years, and I also want to give my thanks to Chris, because without his help, my 2 years as president probably would have ended in the dumps. Kept me on the straight and narrow. So that's well appreciated for both Quinn and Chris. Congratulations on their award. Hey, this one, I wasn't sure where to go with this poem because I didn't want to get into too much of the medical aspects of it because that's what the talk was about. And as you know, I try to get a poem that makes you think of the topic outside of the box. And so I went in a little bit of different direction. Um, as the Enterprise is going away into the sunset, uh, it might be appropriate. So here we go. Second star to the right, and that's the title. Prodigious our leap, eyes locked, second star to the right. Yet tethered as Nana we float, straight on to morning, then to night, then straight into morning again. Prodigious our leap, yet we drift in emptiness, looking back, tethered within a bubble of our world. We seek the second star to the right, and as we measure the void's altering of ourselves. Prodigious our leap, eyes locked, night sun beckoning beyond our carried shell. Tethered, Nana's warning call unheeded rebound. Second star to the right, still so far, so far. Yet our first steps within a bubble still are kept. Prodigious our leap, eyes locked. We look deep within to unlock our altered bodies' feet. To untether within the void, we float, seeking through a sheltering glass the second star to the right, and prodigious our leap. Further into the void, we seek an unfettered expanse, free of our bubble carried far with need, to step unsealed within Neverland's dream. Prodigious our leap, eyes locked on the second star to the right, and flying straight on till morning. So I wanted to look at it optimistically for the future. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. Next but not last, actually, he is last, is as our education, public outreach, and observing chair, Dave Hoskin, and he's going to tell us about what we should be looking for in the June skies. Although maybe not for the next few nights.
Okay, so what's up in June? Well, we're getting towards the longest day of the year, so not a lot of true darkness left, under 4 hours at the start of the month, and decreasing mid-month to the solstice, and then increasing a little bit. So summer solstice is June 21st at just before noon. And the sun has been rather active the last little while. This is picture taken off space weather this morning. So this is what the sun would look like if the clouds weren't overhead. The two sunspot groups I have circled, 3323 and 3319. 3319 is soon to leave us. But those two sunspot groups have the potential for M-class flares. So that's certainly 3323 is one to watch as it moves towards facing the Earth. We may get some aurora borealis if we get good sized flares off it. The other thing to keep an eye open for in the summer months are noctilucent clouds. Normally, these are seen during astronomical twilight, so 90 minutes to 120 minutes after sunset, at a altitude above or latitude above Halifax, so 50 to 70 degrees. But we have seen them in Halifax. So after sunset, we're keeping an eye open. This picture I actually took a few years ago, and we saw them in Halifax. And they're caused by sunlight from below the horizon reflecting off tiny ice crystals, and those ice crystals form on or condense around meteor dust, and they're very high. They're highest clouds on Earth, above Earth, at 76 to 85 kilometers. So quite nice. NASA had a satellite which studied noctilucent clouds and would give some indication that they were present, and apparently its batteries died. So we may not get those insights now on. The moon this month, well, June 3rd, so that's tonight. The moon would be near Antares and Messier 4. We're not going to see that, but maybe those members who are not under cloud cover will be able to see it. Full moon is June 4th. That's the tree's fully leaf moon. Last quarter moon is on the 10th. And on the 14th and 15th, if we've got clear skies, hopefully, two conjunctions that are worth looking at. On the 14th, the crescent moon is going to be close to Jupiter. You have to get up early, 4:30 in the morning, but bring out your 15 by 70 binoculars, and the moon and Jupiter will fit in the field of view. And on the 15th, so second early morning, the waning crescent moon's even thinner, but Uranus is going to be in the field of view. So if you've never seen Uranus through binoculars, good opportunity. The 18th is the new moon, birds shedding feathers, and then on the 26th we have the first quarter moon. As always, those who are doing the moon challenges and explore the universe or explore the moon, the times when you can tick off the most targets are going to be at first quarter and last quarter, so June 8th to 12th, and if you're up early, and June 24th to 28th if you prefer to sleep later in the morning. The planets in June. Mercury is still visible just before dawn, but it'll be lost in the glow of the rising sun by mid-June. Venus is brilliant in the evening sky. I'm sure everyone's noticed it, shining at magnitude minus 4.4. On the 4th, so tomorrow, it will be at its maximum eastern elongation of 45 degrees, so very high up in the sky. It passes the Beehive cluster on the 13th and will be near the waxing crescent moon on the 21st. Mars is still easily found in Gemini at the start of June, and in the last week of June, it'll be at its closest approach to Venus. Jupiter is becoming more prominent in the morning twilight, and as I mentioned, will be near the waning crescent moon on the 14th. There are also a number of double shadow transits to keep an eye open for. Check the observer's handbook for the details. Saturn is visible in Aquarius in the pre-dawn sky, and will be close to the last quarter moon in about a week's time. Uranus will be becoming visible in the morning twilight, and it'll get higher above the horizon as the month progresses. And as I said, will be near the waning crescent moon on the 15th, and Neptune is seen low in the east in Pisces before dawn. So all the planets are visible in June. Here's a photo opportunity, just to point out when Venus is near the Beehive cluster in Cancer. If you have a APS-C sensor camera with a 50 millimeter lens, you can. The laser pointer might work. You can catch Mars, Cancer, the Beehive cluster, and Venus all in one image. On the 21st, another nice wide field photo opportunity: the crescent moon, Venus, Mars, and Beehive cluster in Cancer again. Quite a nice arrangement. Explore the universe. Summer constellations. Twilight ends late, 11:30, so before midnight. Summer constellations: Cygnus, Lyra, Hercules, Secula, Sagittarius, Scorpius, and Capricornus. Summer stars. Brightest star in the summer sky is Vega, Altair, Antares, Deneb. All major stars in the summer constellations. Summer deep sky, your deep sky object to look for if you're doing Explore the Universe is the coat hanger asterism, also known as Colander 399 or Brocchi's cluster. Easy to find. It's situated a third of the way from Altair to Vega, and you look at the bottom. That's what it looks like. Now I flipped it around so it actually looks like a coat hanger, but when you look for it, it's going to be more upside down. Yes, that's right. If you're going south, pretty easy to find in a dark sky, and even in the city, you can find it pretty easily. Summer double stars, or multiple stars. The one I picked out here is Omicron 1 Cygni, which is a triple star. Actually, it's an optical triple star made up of Omicron 1 Cygni, which is 881 light years from us, 30 Cygni, which is 615, and HD 192579, which is 1359 light years from us. So clearly these stars don't have any common gravitational attraction, but they make a very pretty kind of hockey stick shaped cluster in the night sky. Number of us have taken pictures of recently the Pinwheel Galaxy, Messier 101, and the Type 2 supernova that is currently visible. If you haven't looked for it, you should. This is a supernova that was discovered by a amateur astronomer, Koichi Itagaki, on the 19th of May. Little inset at the bottom shows you where to look for to find Messier 101. And currently, this supernova is bright enough that you can see it with a quite easily with a 6-inch telescope, maybe even a 4.5-inch if your skies are really dark. So worth looking for. It jumps right out there at you. I was seeing if I could image it with the little dwarf telescope, and it was easily apparent as the first frames were coming through. Quite easy to find. Another target in Explore the Universe are artificial satellites. So keep an eye out for the International Space Station. We had a couple good passages of it over the last week. And I don't know if anyone saw the Starlink train. Night was it that I was out? The first, maybe? There's like 30 of them went across. Really, really bright. And I think that's it. Yep, that's it. Oh, this is Mars and the Beehive cluster. I think I put that as a challenge last month, so I decided to follow my own challenge and take a picture of it. Are there any questions?
Thanks, David, for that.
Once the sky is clear, looks like we've got a lot to look at in the middle and in the end of the month. So thanks everyone for attending today. Glad to see the people in the room, and glad to see that there were some people out there actually in Zoom land today. So Next time we get together will be in September. See you then. Hopefully we'll see some of you at either the Dark Sky Weekend in Keji or at our own Star Party. Want to thank St. Mary's University for providing this space to us continually on a free for our asking. I also want to thank our speakers, Laura Mclarnon, John Reed, and to Chris Young for their contributions to today's meeting, and to Paul for his poem. Also want to congratulate Chris Young and to Quinn Smith again for their service award that they the announcement was today. And a reminder that the date of our next meeting is September 9. So in the interim, stay well, stay healthy, have a great summer, and don't forget, starting at your feet, look up. Sky is open. Farewell, everyone.